Hey there, guys. Welcome to today's podcast where we have a very special guest. As always, actually, it's been so far been quite blessed with some amazing people. And I'm hoping that those same people are going to give you the amount of insight that I've taken from this kind of experience. So today we've got someone who is actually a dentist, but a bit more. And that's currently the theme of the podcast at the moment. What more is there outside of dentistry, right? And I think as students, we have this perception that maybe dentistry is kind of the end game. But as a couple of guests have shown us before, there's a lot more to dentistry than just pulling out teeth. So let me introduce our guest today. We've got Dr. Mudasser Hussain, who joins us, and I'm going to hand it over to him to give a brief introduction about himself, brief background, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So over to you, Doc.
Thanks, Naveed, for inviting me on this show. Really excited to get stuck in. We had an interesting conversation before we started. So um, hopefully, I can sort of help and inspire people because that's my aim with being a coach. So myself, my background, I've been a dentist for over 13 years now, predominantly initially working in the NHS and then moving and transitioning into private dentistry. And in fact, my story is hopefully going to be an inspiration for the younger dentists who listen to this podcast and the students out there. Because for me, I want to change things. I want to make things better, and I want to inspire, and I want to give you guys the inspiration to go and smash it and go and have a successful career in dentistry. So with myself, my story actually started 3 years ago when I actually had a GDC complaint. And again, I've openly talked about this. And it was during the pandemic when practices weren't paying dentists correctly or properly, and there was a pay dispute. And during that pay dispute, I realized how vulnerable dentistry can be, and how difficult and how lonely it can be, how isolated we can be. So I learned quite a lot through that process. And then I
Okay,
went on and sort of through that process found coaching.
before we kind of get into that, because that's a very important point there as to how you went from there to there. I think first of all, the GDC, a lot of students aren't going to have many interactions with them. They're probably going to know that they're almost the governing body of dentists. But for people that do know, they do realize that GDC can be a bit of a pain in the neck sometimes, right? So you've obviously kind of shone a bit of light as to your experience with them. But are they as ruthless as some people say? I mean, how did they go about with your case, and how did you kind of get out of it before we go into how that then turned into coaching?
So obviously, the GDC are the regulators for the UK dentists. They're the ones that obviously they say themselves protect patients, and they're there for patients, but ultimately they regulate us. And obviously, all dentists, dental nurses, DCPs, everyone has to be registered with them. So the GDC have a history, and it's quite well known within the profession for them to be quite harsh, especially with regards to complaints and investigations,
Hmm.
and the way they've treated dentists as well. And um, this is something that has been an ongoing problem, and they are getting better in certain things. But I think one of the issues that we all would like to see is how long it takes for an investigation to complete. And
Right.
mine took 2 years, and
Whoa.
that's quite a considerable amount of time in your life to have to dedicate to
Mm.
a complaint or an issue. And I think that that's one of the challenges that somebody who's facing GDC will always face, is that nobody really understands the psychosocial, emotional aspect, as well as sometimes the financial aspect. Because
Mm.
if you've got an ongoing investigation, you're going to have to tell your employer, you're going to have to be honest with any future applications and things. And there's almost that sort of shame or embarrassment that comes with it, as well as that whole impact that it has on your family, your personal life, and telling everyone
Mm.
about it. So I wish it on no one, and obviously everyone stays safe. However, I myself personally have helped. One of my main things of why I went into coaching was I found it life changing when I had my investigation, and I thought nobody in dentistry really knows how powerful it can be, and having somebody alongside you to help you navigate the whole process and sort of come out stronger and better and get a good outcome is basically where I come in, or where I've come in and help people.
And did you have that support when you were going through those, 2 years of, horrible experience with the GDC, or were you doing it alone? And is that kind of where you figured it out?
Yeah, that's one of the issues, because myself, prior to this, I was quite a bit of a loner. I didn't have any social media, didn't know anyone in dentistry. I had a few friends and my own little bubble, and that was it. So I was quite isolated, and dentistry can be quite isolated. So it's important to build good networks. But through this whole investigation till the end, it was the best thing that I believe happened to me, because
Right.
through that situation, I started connecting with the profession. I started understanding what others were going through and what others were silent about. And what I realized was there is a definite need to help people who are going through an investigation, as well as all the things that happen along the way, because people don't really understand, because you've got that first initial shock, horror, sometimes embarrassment of this whole investigation happening, but then there's also what comes with it is your indemnity and all the letters and going back and forth with things and the whole process. And for me, like I've also started to try to get the indemnities to understand that there are ways that you can help dentists do better, and give them that support, because a lot of the time you're left on your own with a solicitor who has no idea how you're feeling as a dentist, as well as they also help doctors, they help nurses, they help other healthcare professions, so they're not even specialized to even understand the dental industry.
Of course, yeah.
So so through my experience, I just really wanted to help as many people as I can. So I've made it my mission to help as many people as I can through coaching. So currently I'm actually an NHS mentor in the Greater Manchester area.
Amazing.
So there's actually a free scheme for NHS dentists in Greater Manchester who want to be mentored or coached. It's a very informal arrangement. They don't have to pay anything. It's just 1 hour a month, and we just meet in a coffee shop or somewhere, and we discuss whatever issues they want to discuss. It might be cases, it might be things they discuss that they're struggling with. It might be just their general well-being and health. So it's kind of a really nice initiative. And the beauty of it is it's completely free, confidential, and you're having that one-on-one chat with an experienced dentist to sort of help you navigate through any challenges that you might have. And I really, really enjoy that. And that's why, obviously, I love the fact that, you've reached out to me to come on to this podcast, because it's sort of perfect, because it's exactly what I want to do, help the younger dentists, or help people, grow and get better, and sort of understand some of the challenges that may be coming for them in the future as well.
That's brilliant. I think we're definitely going to get on to kind of the different channels within your coaching. And one of those that I do want to explore is whether there is an avenue for, as you quite rightly said, students at the moment or aspiring dentists to maybe reach out to you. And we'll get on to that in a minute, because I do feel as though people want to know, how do they get in touch? So that's something we'll discuss. But one major thing at the moment, I think, which it's been around for centuries, if not longer, is the concept of mental health, right? Now, when we look at your experience and 2 years almost on your own, with the GDC, who can be quite harsh, as you've said, and as many people have said, and I've kind of seen from many reports online how harsh they can treat some people as well. That must have taken a massive toll on your mental health as well. So, one, how do you deal with that? And two, what should they be expecting, especially from the student level, when they're looking at dentistry as a whole, whether that's the application into dentistry, getting in, the preclinical to clinical years, the foundation year and everything. I don't want to kind of take too much time on each one of those facets, but overall, what should they expect from dentistry when it comes to mental health? And people have thrown out these wild stats about how there's got the highest suicide rate, and dentistry is one of them, or it's been close enough. As somebody who's been through almost the worst case within dentistry, how do you deal with that? Obviously, you are definitely a support structure for people to work off of and ensure that they keep a healthy state of mind. But what should people expect?
I think one of the things from my experience was, I mean, we have to all accept that the pandemic completely changed for us all and could change our lives, and we were all impacted mentally, financially, in lots of ways. And I think we have to now accept that, especially the new way of living, cost of living, and all these other things that come with it. Mental health is a real issue for almost everyone, and being able to sort of regulate and understand your own mental health, as well as getting support and things like that, is crucial. And one of the things from my own personal perspective was, it's not that stress wasn't there. Prior to this incident, I used to get stressed. I used to have things, and one of the things that I found I struggled with was sometimes confrontations, because you'll get patients who really do kick off and sort of, threaten to complain against you, and threaten to sue you, and all these things that come with the business of dentistry. And if your mental health isn't in the best, it only takes little incidences like that can just suddenly knock you off course and knock your mental health completely. So for me, in the past, I used to have little bouts of, I've had counseling, I've had therapy, I've had hypnotherapy. So all these sort of things, where you go through really stressful periods and you think, you know what, I need someone to talk to, because it's really impacting my life, and I'm not sleeping well, I'm tired at work. What might be, however you might do, however it might affect you. But so I had all this previous to this happening. It was only during this that I had a friend who was quite a wealthy friend, who had a business coach, and I knew nothing about coaching. It was something that, I just assumed it was like, sports. You've got coach, and people just coach. Do you know what I mean? I had no idea what it was, and it was only through understanding and meeting him, and then obviously having a session with this coach, that I kind of thought, whoa, this is different. I never really thought of life this way, because a lot of therapy and hypnotherapy just focus on the past, and they focus on all that. And I get that the past can be relevant, but in reality, what coaching is and it's happening across across all sectors, where coaching is really, really gaining traction, because it's all very future focused, and it gives you tools, resources to handle future situations, rather than deal with too much in the past. And that's what I found fascinating, that we are now all about the future, and we're all about creating the future. So for me, after having that coaching session and sort of understanding how coaching works, I absolutely loved it. I was like, no one's ever explained this to me, or I've never thought about life in this way. And then I thought, you know what, I love it so much that I'm going to do an ILM 7 qualification in it. So I went and did an ILM 7 qualification. That was, again, life-changing, because I started meeting people outside dentistry, and I thought, wow, these guys are actually a lot more smarter than dentists. These guys are solving huge problems in business, and these guys are like, you know what I mean? Like, we think dentists, we're really clever, intelligent people. No, you're not. Let me tell you, you're not. When you're in a big organization, I think you mentioned your background, you were in corporate. Some of the challenges and problems that these higher senior managers or senior leaders have to solve are really, really complex. And for them to make business decisions as to what the right thing to do is massive. And what I realized is there's a whole culture out there of coaching with the top organizations. They all utilize coaching. They all have coaches, and even when they're making decisions at the top, that it's coaches who help them develop the strategy. And again, I'm just going to mention that, during my ILM 7, one of the corporates I studied was my dentist. And it's interesting that probably a lot of dentists don't know how their strategies develop, what their role is, because they're just the dentist in that practice, and they're so focused on the UDAs or whatever, they don't even know. Do you know what I mean? There's no connection from the top to the bottom, and I think that's one thing that there's literally no connection. They just see it as a business, and they just see it as numbers, and this dentist generates this number, and dentistry in the real world is not like that. Dentistry is about trust. Dentistry is about your relationship with the patient. Dentistry is so much more different than what and I think that's why, in my opinion, they've failed in, as a corporate, or their strategy has failed over many years, because they've not had the right approach. And dentistry is a bit like, I suppose, it's a bit like your hairdresser or your barber. You kind of gonna go to the same person because you trust that person, and you think, I've got a relation, I know what they're about. And I think that element people have, especially my dentists, I'd failed to understood, and that's reflected in their sort of financial, if you look at their financial,
earnings
things you can
reports and
can,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can clearly tell that.
And then obviously for those that don't know, including myself, give us a bit more of a background as to the ILM7, what it takes to get there, what it almost teaches you and qualifies you to do, and how that can then help people.
So obviously coaching, there's lots of niches within coaching, and there's lots of different areas within coaching. So obviously life coaching is something that a lot of people may have heard of, and obviously that focuses a lot more on your mental health, lifestyle, and things like that. But coaching itself, there's people have niched into like career coaching. There's lots of different areas that you can specialize in. But in essence, the true sort of nature of coaching is to basically unlock potential. That's
Yeah.
that's the main focus, and maximizing performance. So myself, like I said, I was always interested in business and entrepreneurship, and sort of growing and understanding investments. And the best investment is always in yourself. And these are things that I never really understood until the last 3 years. You don't really understand that, how money works, for example, how investing in you know what I mean. Like, a lot of decisions we make off emotions. So somebody might create a hype about a particular composite course, or a particular aligner course, and then everyone just jumps on that bandwagon
Yeah.
and goes to it. And probably for like 5% or 1% of the people that went on that course, it's been absolutely amazing. And for the other 95%, they just got done by
Yeah.
going on those courses. So for me, what I want to do is empower people and think about, rather than following the hype, create your own path, and create your own sort of niche, or create your own, and think about, because coaching is all about goals. So we're focused on you getting to where you want to be, and I want to sort of empower people to eventually, get where they want to be, whether that's a practice owner, whether that's an associate, whether that's a speciality, whether that's like an orthodontist, or whatever it might be that you want to get to. My job is to facilitate that process and get you to where you want to be. Well, coming back to your question, the ILM7 is one of the highest accreditations you can get in coaching.
Oh,
And it takes it took me over 2.5 years to do it.
wow.
Obviously it involves coaching for so many hours. It involves you being supervised, assessing. It involves obviously assignments, and things. So it's something that for me, it just got me to fully understand the whole theory behind why coaching is so effective, and how you can utilize it on basically anyone.
And do you think that there's a certain archetype of person that can do coaching or should do coaching, or is it very much a case of, I find that interesting, I actually think that I could probably try my hand at it? Because there's some people out there that might say, I always want to help people, but I'm a bit shy. I don't have the skill set. I don't like to talk so much publicly to people or meet with strangers. And there's probably people out there, especially as students at the moment or newly qualified dentists, that might just think, I want to do more than just dentistry. And a bit like you're saying, they want to help people, right? So is it very much a case of you have to be a very specific type of person to follow this course and be a coach? Or, can you
Um,
pretty much be anyone?
I would say yes and no. Coaching's it's one of those that I think you'll get better at it the more experience you've got. I mean, one of the challenges that I've had within dentistry, I would say only 40% of my clients are actually dentists. Most
Okay.
are actually outside non-dentists. One of the challenges we have in dentistry is this mindset, and this concept of a hierarchy. Like, if you're a high-end private dentist working in London, you somehow have this
Yeah.
superiority, and you're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the big guy, and there's this culture within dentistry. So if there's somebody, I don't know, who's newly graduated, come 1 or 2 years, tries to have a conversation with somebody like him, he'll be like, "What do you know? What do you know? What can you teach me?" So in my view, dentistry doesn't quite yet have a mature attitude towards coaching, and in
Right.
fact, there's a resistance to coaching. There's the idea that it's a money-making scheme. That I've had lots of difficult, challenging conversations with dentists, and my feeling is that it's not there now because dentists are usually the last one to embrace something new. So I think that it will be there in then probably the next 5 or 10 years. But right now, I think the culture isn't there because I think we've got this. I mean, it was there when I newly graduated. You know, there'd be people saying, you know, what's your UDA rate, or how many UDAs are you doing? How much private do you do? And you have this little banter between each other. But as you go along, people become more and more sort of jealous, shall we say? So it becomes a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
more, and they don't have that. I call it emotional intelligence to be able to understand and respect each other. So like I said, and I'm actually glad that you know, most of my clients aren't dentists because I think dentists, like I said, it's not, they just don't have that level of maturity or professionalism in you know, or that culture is just not there. They tend to have a very competitive culture between each other rather
Yeah.
than and you know, yourself, when you've worked in corporates and stuff, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. Like me and
Yeah.
you are talking, I was giving you tips about my podcast before
Yeah.
we came on, and to me, I don't feel like I'm losing something by doing that. And to me,
Exactly.
it's like if I can help you, I'm sure at some point you'll be able to help me, and
100%.
that's what
100%.
that's the culture that you kind of want to embrace. And the guys at the top, that's what they do. You know, the top businesses and stuff. It is all about sort of collaborating with each other and growing together, and realizing that life isn't really a competition. You grow on your own kind of. You can both grow up together. It's not about do you know what I mean? And once you shift away from that mindset of understanding that the more value you give to people, the better you do, the more actual growth and you'll attract the right people to you.
Of
So
course.
I'm hoping, obviously, you know, obviously the people who will listen to this podcast will resonate with what I'm saying and think, you know what, actually this guy does know what he's talking about, and he does have a bit of a different approach to perhaps some of the other perhaps influencers out there who are there
Yeah.
showcasing their amazing skill set or dentistry. And you got to realize that everyone starts somewhere. That's taken years and years of you know, being brave and getting there. And obviously some people will have that natural confidence in their work or in their persona, so they can carry it off. But in reality, you know, that's not what real life or real dentistry is about. And I think people have to understand the nature of social media and real life. And I think more and more it's getting exposed even outside dentistry, where influencers have been sort of lying really about
Yeah.
some of their you know, some of the things they've been posting on social media. And when you actually look into those individuals, you realize they're not what they appear to be.
Mm. But I mean, like that's the quite important thing actually there that you said that his years of being brave and it's years of having a certain persona, right, to be able to do those things as well. I'm talking about those guys that are genuine, they're authentic, and their work's not fake. Let's say, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
now there's probably a majority of people, especially within dentistry, that are new to dentistry or maybe even in dentistry at the moment that may not fit that kind of mold of being very expressive or very forthcoming with their work, but their work might be amazing, right? You probably have people that you're coaching at the moment, or maybe there's people like this that could approach you. How would you deal with them in giving them the confidence to see that brighter future and maybe start doing more for themselves in the sense of marketing properly, selling themselves at the right value for what they're worth, and not underselling themselves because they lack the confidence? So how would you take someone on like that without giving away too many of your secrets, right? To kind of get the best out?
So the key for me is always understanding yourself. The more you can understand yourself and your personality, your character, you realize who you are. And the minute you start to understand that, you start to change how you perceive the world and how others perceive you. And I think, myself, I always start off with psychometric testing of individuals. So that might include getting their MBTI or personality type, getting their disc profile, maybe using things like the Wheel of Life. So there's certain sort of tests, I suppose, like dentistry, that you might do on an individual, look at what their insights are, get them to understand who they are, because we're not all extroverts or introverts. We don't always fit into a certain category.
Of
And a
course,
lot of
yeah.
the time, what you realize is there's a history there, and there's a reason why someone's behaving in a particular way. And sometimes I would say a lot of it is actually down to childhood experiences. We don't
Oh,
actually fully give the meaning or value of what our childhood experiences are. So a lot of our limiting beliefs can come from negative childhood experiences, and that might not be intentional. It might be like, maybe a parent saying to you, you're not that neat, or you're not that tidy, you'll never become a dentist. I don't think you're going to be good enough to become and sometimes, especially in Asian culture, there's that comparison of somebody else, and this person's done really well and you've not, and
100%.
and that kind of thing. And you realize that sometimes there's a lot of emotional trauma, and sort of the confidence hasn't come because of things that they've experienced throughout their lives,
Ah,
or,
yeah.
or something that's happened, or something. It might be something simple like parents separating, for example, or something. Some life event may have impacted them a lot, and they've not realized how much it has. It might be, an incident at school. It might be anything. So I'm starting to realize that if it's like with everyone, when you meet someone they're a product of all the things that have happened to them throughout all their lives. And sometimes you can almost sense it through their body language, through the way they talk to you, the way they carry themselves, and things. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're quiet. And even myself, like when I meet new people, I'm quite quiet. And the reason why I'm quiet is because one of the things that I like to do is sort of analyze. I'm quite an
Ah, okay, yeah.
I like to listen to people. I feel like you actually have more power in a conversation when you're listening to people,
Mm.
and because then people are like waiting for you to listen to what you're about to say, and I feel like you've got more power, and that's just the way I am. I like watching people. I like looking at their body language, seeing their manners, and the manners go a long way for me. But you kind of can, once you take a step back from any person, you can kind of sort of start to understand their whole their whole thing. And I think that's really powerful, because if you can step away, because the way I see coaching is where basically you've got a mirror and you're holding it up to yourself, and you're sort of saying, this is what I see and this is what I see, and blah blah blah. And then you kind of sort of challenging some of those things and saying, well, I don't really see that, are you sure that's what you
Ah,
see? And you're sort of challenging their sort of views of how they see themselves in a way.
okay,
And I
right.
suppose your job is to challenge their limiting beliefs. You know what I mean? Like myself,
Ah,
I was never one of the most confident of people. Even as an undergraduate, you were kind of I was probably very, very underconfident compared to a lot of people. And I think that then meant you started putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on yourself of having to do well or trying to do well. And sometimes that, other people wouldn't understand it, but once you start to understand yourself and start understanding who you are and why you behave in a certain way and where those fears have come from, then it's really, really powerful. And it can be life changing, because what you got to realize is that every day we are a computer. We basically upload the same information, the same files come up, and every day we're telling ourselves a story of, this is how this person is, this is how this person is. And some of the stories that we're telling ourselves isn't always true. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, this
yeah.
person must think I'm really weird, or this person must think this or that. And you sort of, sometimes they've not even thought about that, but you've almost sort of, you've taken it and you've sort of put it in your computer and uploaded it. So a lot of the time you've got to sort of start to shift mindsets from that negative mindset, or that mindset that everyone's out to get you, or all that kind of thing. And you got to sort of say, look, there's enough opportunity, and shift towards a growth or abundance mindset, I call it, where you're sort of focused on opportunities, growing. Everything in the world is happening for a reason and for the best, and even negative experiences you turn into a positive, and you think, yeah, there must be a reason behind why that didn't happen and why this happened and things. And there's a lot in life that I would say that in life, when you start looking back, you realize that the negative experiences were actually good for you, even though at the time you thought it was the worst thing possible. So I look back at this GDC case thinking, you know what, if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have been earning the money I'm earning right now. I probably wouldn't be connecting with the people that I'm talking right now. And
Definitely.
all the things that have happened to me since then was as a result of that horrible, negative initial experience that happened. But to me, it's life changing, because it's given me the confidence. It's given me a lot more, and more than you could possibly imagine. So sometimes when we see something negative happen, don't necessarily assume. I know it's difficult at the time because you have to manage your emotions, stress and things, but in the long term, it will always work out, because it's all about how you respond to that negative thing that just happened.
And this kind of goes back to that point you said about mental health, right? That the thing that sometimes we focus on too much is the past trauma. And I'm not saying to discount that whatsoever, but one of the greatest things in reflection could actually be how that's taught us a lesson, right? And made us who we are today, and to be proud of it. And I think then from there's that stepping stone into then what are we developing ourselves into the future? And that's where the coaching side comes into it. I think that's quite powerfully linked from sort of that mental health side of things that's almost stuck in the past, in a positive way, I should say. But then the key to unlock that and turn almost that trauma into success is understanding how that links into a positive future, right? So I think, one of the things that I would be very interested in knowing, and I think many people would be interested in knowing, is how could a dental student, an aspiring dental student, or a student in general, just simply because that's the people that are mainly going to be tuning into this, how can they kind of look at this and say, I want to take advantage of a service like this, an insight like this, to give myself the best future? How could they really take advantage of that?
I think that, like I said, the first thing is actually realizing there's a problem, or realizing that actually, you know what, I am suffering, and you got to start doing the things that, just basic things initially, I would say, just the things that, where I call it self-care, or looking after yourself. So that might be, adding exercise into your regime, looking after your diet,
Right.
and looking after how well you're eating, looking at some of the things in terms of online content that you're consuming, and whether that's sort of impacting you. Start reaching out to friends, start doing sociable things that you enjoy doing, and sort of fight back, because obviously depression it can be quite debilitating, you know what I mean, it's because your mind wants to do the opposite. It just wants to sit at home,
Yeah.
chill out, have a warm bath, put Netflix on, don't see anyone, just get rid of the world, whatever it might be. And that's what you want to do. But that's the worst thing you can do for your mental
Yeah.
health. So sometimes you have to do the actions and push yourself out to do it in that. But it takes courage. It takes a lot of pushing, and it takes a lot of having supportive networks around you, having trusted friends and things, so you can do the basics yourself. But to me, I teach techniques that are lifelong, because I want you to, because one of the things that we don't really realize is how limited time we have.
Of
And
course. Yeah.
time is actually the most valuable asset we all have. And what coaching teaches you is being intentional with that time, and understanding that, even like a few weeks ago, I posted out a video about, if you think about it, everyone has 24 hours in a day, everyone has the same thing, but why is it that some people are more successful than others, and what is it that they're doing differently? And I suppose when you start looking into their habits and things that they're doing differently to smash it, you realize that the reason why you're not smashing it is because you're not doing the same things that they're doing. And to me, my coaching really teaches you to basically create goals and create action plans, and sort of create accountability, and get you to where you want to be. So it's all about sort of pushing and sort of nurturing and developing your own talent, abilities, and sort of getting you where you want to be, but also being very intentional with your time and dedication, because a lot of the time we're just focused on the next day and the next day and the next day, and we're not very smart with using our time. And then you wonder why all this time has passed and you've never really, you'll speak to someone, I really want to do an Invisalign course, I want to do an aligner course, I'm really, and then you come and it's like, well, what happened then? Did you oh no, you know what, and then they come up with this excuse, and you know what,
Yeah.
and I was like, if you were really serious about doing the aligner course, you would have made sure that you would have taken some action and do it. But I'm not sure whether I'll get enough patients, whether I would have this. So for me, it's about like sort of creating a path, and I think dentists, they waste a lot of money on things they don't need as well. Like some courses, something, and they go on these courses way too early. Get out there, get practicing, get working, get some cases under your belt, start learning, and once you've done that, you can then start to sort of think, okay, I want to go to the next level with this, or I want to start adding this to my skill set, etc. And you start being intentional about who you go to and where you go, rather than just following what everyone else is doing.
100%. I think now people are probably going to be intrigued as to how they can get in touch with you. So before we wrap up, do you want to just give us kind of your contact details or how people can find out more?
Yeah, so obviously my website is MudasserHussain.com. I'm quite got quite a big following on Facebook, actually, 6,000 followers. So obviously you can connect with me on there, and I do regularly post on there. I've got, I think, nearly 3,000 followers on LinkedIn. You can direct message me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. There's the email address as well on my website. So however you want to contact me, for me, I'm just all about helping people. And I will say to you, look, I'm not the right person for this, or I can get you in touch with somebody else. But for me, I always want the best for whoever gets in touch with me, because for me, it's about serving, helping, inspiring, creating, and getting people moving, and just thinking like, you're not alone, guys. We can create a dental community, and that's much better than the previous generation. Do you know what I mean? I suppose I don't know if are you into football?
Yeah, West Ham fan, unfortunately.
West Ham fan. But I suppose that we can compare it to like the England generation, like these guys who got to 2 finals. People are critical of them, but these guys are different. Do you know what I mean? You look at the era of Beckhams and all these big celebrities, they never managed to achieve what these guys achieved. And I myself feel like the younger generation can be like these guys and create a much better culture than what the older guys have created. And I've seen it. I'm still part of it. And the older guys, don't have that supportive structure in there. And it's a very competitive environment. It's a very money-driven environment, and it's a very, very sad to say, but that's how the previous dental generations have been. And you guys can be something different. You guys can create a new culture, a new generation where everyone's thriving, everyone's got supportive networks, and everyone's doing really, really well. And the more I can get to you guys, the younger guys, to do this, the better, and the better future we'll all have in dentistry.
That's amazing stuff. That's really good words to close that off with. So I just wanted to say, from myself and for everybody listening, I'm sure, thank you so much for coming on. I think the insight was very important for us to hear. And I think it's a subject that maybe our egos let us deafen ourselves, unfortunately, to be coached or want to be coached. So to get that insight from you was great. And I think everybody out there listening will probably be interested in reaching out to you or connecting with you in some way, shape or form. In the future, we'll try to do another one, and maybe we can get some feedback as to how the community reacted to this one. So Dr. Mudasser Hussain, thank you so much for joining us today. And for everyone else who was watching or listening, thank you. And I'm hoping to see you guys on the next ones. Take care and goodbye.